Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're going to go undercover and meet some real secret agents of the English language. I'm not kidding. These aren't the big, flashy words you notice. Nope. They're the ones doing all the heavy lifting in the background, shaping what we say without us even realizing it. So, let me just ask you this straight up. What do you think are the most powerful words in English? Now, if your mind immediately jumps to those long, complicated, fancy-sounding words, well, you might be surprised. See, the real power players, the real movers and shakers, they're not complicated at all. In fact, they're the small words you and I use every single day, probably without even a second thought. They're kind of hiding in plain sight. Okay, so their official name is helping verb, or if you want to get fancy, auxiliary verb. And their mission? It's pretty much what it sounds like. They're like the backup for the main verb, jumping in to really clarify the true meaning of what's happening. Think of it like this, right? The main verb, something like eating, that's the star of the show. It's the main action. But the helping verb, that's the all-important support crew. The word is in is eating tells you when it's all going down. Without that support crew, the star just can't perform. So, who are these essential crew members anyway? Let's meet the core team. I call them the big three. Yep, just three. It's kind of wild when you think about it. A huge chunk of English grammar, all our different tenses and little nuances, it's all built on the foundation of these three simple verbs. Talk about getting a lot done with a little. All right, our first agent is be. And this one is a true master of disguise. It's always changing its form, right? It shows up as am, is, are, was, or were, depending on who we're talking about and when. So what does Agent B actually do? Well, it's got two main specialties. First, it handles ongoing actions, what grammar nerds call the continuous tenses. And second, it manages passive situations. That's when the subject of the sentence isn't doing the action, but is having the action done to them. Just look at this sentence. She is cooking dinner. That little word is a huge signal that the cooking is happening right now. If you take it out, she cooking dinner, it just sounds broken, doesn't it? It feels incomplete. Okay, moving on to our second agent, have. And just like be, this one also changes its uniform, showing up as have, has, or had. Now, agent have has a very specific job. Its whole deal is handling actions that are already completed. It's the expert in what we call the perfect tenses, which is just a way of talking about things that are totally finished. Check this out. They had left before I arrived. The helping verb had is doing some seriously important work here. It tells us that the leaving part was completely done before the arriving even started. It creates this perfect, clear timeline, all with just one tiny word. Pretty cool, right? And that brings us to our third and maybe the most versatile agent of them all, do. It also appears as does or did, and believe me, this one is a real multi-tool. So, agent do is the specialist you call in when there's no other helping verb on the scene. It's got three main jobs: asking questions, making sentences negative, and, adding that extra bit of emphasis when you really need it. It's amazing how much work it does. It can flip a statement into a question. Do you? Just like that. And it creates a negative with doesn't or don't. It's basically the Swiss Army knife of grammar that we all use in conversation constantly. Okay, so we've met the big three, the main field agents. But sometimes a mission needs a very specific skill set. And that's where the modal verbs come in. You can think of these guys as the special ops team of grammar. So here's the team roster. You've got can, could, may, might, and all the rest. Now, what's cool about these is that unlike our other agents, these guys don't change their form. Each one is brought in for a very specific reason, to add a layer of mood or attitude, things like possibility, ability, or obligation into a sentence. Let's take can. Its specialty is ability. If I say I swim, that's just a fact. But if I say I can swim, that's a statement about my capability. It's a totally different meaning, and can is what makes that difference. Or how about the modal must? Its specialty is necessity or obligation. Saying you must study is way stronger than just you study, right? It totally changes the tone of the sentence. And then you've got might, the specialist for possibility. This one adds this really crucial layer of uncertainty. He might come to the party. It means he's not definitely coming, but he's not definitely staying home either. Might just captures that in-between feeling perfectly. So, we've met the primary agents and the specialists. Now let's just take a quick look at how they all assemble into a full-on verbatim to get the job done. All right, let's do a quick mission debrief. You've got our primary agents, be, have, and do, handling all the basic stuff, like timing and sentence structure. Then you bring in our modal specialist to layer on those important details like possibility and ability. Put them all together, and that's what gives our language so much precision. And when you combine one or even more of these helping verbs with a main verb, what you get is called a verb phrase. So in a sentence like, she has been studying, you can actually see two helping verbs, has and been, working together with studying to create a super specific meaning. Now that's teamwork. So you see, these small, kind of unassuming words, they're really the engines of English. They control everything from time to attitude. And now that you know how to spot these secret agents at work, the real question is, how are you going to use them to make your own English even more powerful?